Hello and welcome in to Limited Time Only. I'm Andrew Laird. You can find me as Lairdinho on Sorare, joined once again by Keith Jamison, Gator Guide 231 on Sorare and pretty much everywhere else. Before we jump in, we're going to talk about Champion Europe today. But before we jump in, and I dropped this in the chat as well. Thank you to everybody who's joining us. There is a new survey out that we, Sorare Data, are asking everyone to complete. So the link is actually right on the Sorare Data homepage. It is also in the chat here. I'll drop it in the description under the video for anyone who is watching this afterwards. And so if you guys could please complete that. We do these every few months just to kind of get a gauge of what everyone's thinking. And it's easier than just kind of trying to collate a bunch of random Twitter comments and stuff. So if everybody could get on that, that would be greatly appreciated. I'm not asking you to trade the survey for a like on the video. You can do both. So let's just do that. Let's do that. But you can all probably take the survey as you're watching because it's not a high effort survey. 5 minutes tops. And so if everybody could do that, greatly appreciate it. Keith, we are here to talk about not so much how to play Champion Europe Rare, Limited, but how much it kind of costs to play. And similarly to every conversation about Sorare, the answer is really, it just depends. Depends what you want to get out of it. Depend in terms of, I really hate saying ROI, but ROI, or what your ROI actually is in terms of just enjoyment, following your team, all that. And there is a long history on this YouTube channel of talking about how hard Champion Europe is. And a lot of it is because, well, they're just some really, really good teams and people buy players from those teams. But it's just competitive. But that doesn't mean that that's why you shouldn't play. That's not you should not play. And so we're just going to go through kind of different ways to play. And our good friend Andy Black sent us a message before this about how cheap one of his Champion Europe stacks is. And so I think we'll get into that.
Could it be hammer time? Without even knowing. So I was just going to say this too. We're not going to, it's actually funny in typical Sorare Data stream fashion. We have talked very minimally together about this before jumping on. And I don't think that our goal was to approach this like we have a huge wad of cash either. It's to kind of show maybe you can do it without that. Am I correct?
For sure. I mean, we talked about it a little bit just like last week when it's like if you wanted to get a top, I think that was last week, if you wanted to get like a top Champion Europe side of, whatever stacks you want, Allison, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Kimmich, Mbappe, and I don't remember who the last one was, Griezmann probably, like here's what it'll cost. And I don't think that's where we're going to go with it. Partially because there are a few different competitions. If you want to play Champion Europe, of how to do that, you don't have to just play Champion Europe too. There are league-specific ones that we'll get into if you want to play those. Yep. And so we're just going to go through all of that because generally the Champion Europe leagues, meaning the domestic leagues that make up Champion Europe, are the most popular ones worldwide. Yep. And so we understand that people want to play those.
And kind of, I also want to say this too, like inspiration to if these go well, we were kind of thinking this could be like move down the divisions. We wanted to start with Champ Euro because we know a lot of for people, Limited's a new step into the game, and your new step into the game sometimes isn't researching the J League or the K League or wondering why your K League scores aren't working. That might not be the most pleasant experience. So we thought, Champion Europe's where everybody that's going to approach this game probably knows a good chunk of the names. So let's get that one out of the way first.
For sure. And really, this is becoming a very common theme on this channel. Nepenthes said something, tweeted something, but basically he asked a bunch of FIFA Ultimate Team players why, if they haven't gotten into Sorare, why they haven't. And a lot of the responses were just like, well, it just seems like a lot of work. And even the money side of it didn't come up as much as I thought. Which was kind of interesting, and partially it's like prices have gone down, and it feels like there were a lot of people at a time that wanted to get into Sorare and saw the prices, and they were like, "That's too high." We know prices are down now, but it felt like a common theme that I saw throughout the replies was simply I don't want to have to research leagues I don't care about, referencing Jupiler or Eredivisie or the K League. And if you play Champion Europe, you don't have to do that. And they even have, meaning Sorare, have specific domestic league competitions that you can participate in. So if you only care about the Bundesliga or the Premier League, you can play those competitions. Are they difficult to win? Yes, they are. But that doesn't mean you can't have fun playing it. So we'll get into that. So the first thing I wanted to at least point out, and this is going to get a little introductory for a lot of people who are regulars in the chat here. Like, I know that a lot of people have been watching our stuff for a while, and whether, even if you only play limiteds, if you have been doing it for a while, then you know a lot of this stuff. But I think it's at least beneficial to go through some of it just so those who are new can understand what we're talking about here. So the one that I wanted to point out is this announcement that Sorare had months and months ago. Let me scroll to the top here. January 18th, that they outlined the new competitions that they had for starters, basically. And so we have the amateur competitions, which come in for the top 5 European leagues. One of the weird things is that they don't have every player for every league. We do have it from the Premier League. I think Nellis mentioned it once that like Serie A is a little tough to play because they don't have Inter, they don't have Juve, they don't have Roma, and so that is an issue.
It's a little quirky.
What's that?
I said it's a little quirky when you go in there and you're like, you've scouted your matchups and you're like, all right, I'm going to stack this team. Oh, no, I'm not.
Right. Yeah. And there are, they don't have all of Ligue 1 in France as well, but they do have all of the Bundesliga, all of La Liga, and all of the Premier League. And so if one of those 3 is of interest to you, then you can play these competitions. The amateur competition, this graphic that they use makes it look like you can easily kind of progress from one to the other. And it's not really progression. Like I'll explain how it's progression, but basically the amateur competition is just different than how you have to play the others, mostly because you draft players based off of their L15s at the time, and then you play. The gameplay itself is the same. It's still SO5, and you get points for each player that you have in your lineup. But once you start moving into the paid games, which are like the semi-pro, which you can actually kind of play for free if you are successful in the amateur competition. Mm-hmm. But then the Pro 270, that's when you start buying cards or using ones you've won in order to participate. And that just makes it a little different than the draft competition. What we're going to do is talk more on the pro, semi-pro, Pro 270, and then Champion Europe Limited, because the discussion around the amateur game is just very, very different. Like, it's a very different way to play. You're competing with so many more managers. And everybody has the same budget of 0. And so that's just not the conversation we're going to have today. So, Keith, we are doing a Champion Europe conversation. It is now June 28th. So obviously there are no matches going on right now. We're also in the midst of one of the silliest transfer season, or about to start the silliest transfer seasons, as we've seen players like Karim Benzema and N'Golo Kante go to Saudi Arabia. We don't know. Saudi Arabia will never be part of Champion Europe, so we don't have to worry about that. Yeah. But I just want to kind of like preface that any conversations that we have about either specific teams or players obviously can change by the time the 2023-24 season starts. And so I just want to be clear that it's the strategies that we're going to discuss that I think are more important than the actual player picks. And so basically, if we get a player that we think is good right now and it turns out they get a transfer to some terrible team, meaning terrible for SO5, please don't hold us. Right. That's all. Or
death to FSO5 even. We're not Saudi league experts here, or Saudi rumor experts here. So
right. So there's there are a few people in chat or a few comments in chat, that I wanted to touch on, because it's funny because people we all have like different opinions of basically the amateur game, and the Germ, I like this. Amateur is the shallow end, teaching you to swim, but showing you that it's capable to drown with inadequate preparation, which is absolutely true. And it just kind of comes about
100%.
that the, like I said, the gameplay to winning amateur is just very different. You have to be a little more off the wall, and you're just competing against so many more people that you're going to realize the more you play Sorare that the fewer people you have to compete against, then it's a little easier to win. And so if you see, 80,000 people competing in one competition, and if you buy one card and now you're competing against 5,000 people, that's a little easier to win. And the prizes are even better. So anyway,
Yep.
Bobby said, I saw Nep's tweet people mentioning that it's pretty much impossible to win a card from free-to-play tournaments. And it's very difficult. Like, I'm not going to hide that. And it's part of the reason why I don't even want to talk about it because we're not hiding that it's hard. Like it's hard. Yeah. And there are somewhat cheap ways to get into these other competitions that will allow you to have a clearer path to winning.
Yep.
That's all. KB97 said, my brother's a complete FIFA nerd, but couldn't care less about data and fantasy stuff. And that's fair. And maybe this just isn't the game for your brother because there's a lot of data and fantasy stuff. Yeah, that's fair.
Everybody changes,
That's right. So there was one comment. Somebody brought it up to me, and I apologize for not remembering who it is. But actually, we'll get to the pro competition in a while. But basically, like we said, there's amateur, semi-pro. Semi-pro, you have to use one limited card and 4 of the commons that you have from your draft teams. You get to captain your limited card, so you get a 50% bonus, which is always nice. But the Pro 270 is really what I wanted to get into. And you and I have been talking with our good friend Alex Super about this competition because he plays it in a couple of different leagues, Champion Europe being one of them. But basically, you can play up to 5 limiteds. You can play 4, though, and use one of the commons. And it felt like when this competition came out, everyone was like, oh, that's really good because goalies are expensive. And if you can use a common goalie, then that's great because you don't have to, outlay all that money. So the competition, I think the people who play it that way, it's fine. But the strategy that I liked the most is to absolutely buy a goalkeeper and don't buy Mbappe and use a common Mbappe or Kimmich or whoever.
Or Gil for the summer, make that Sorare. Like, let your superstar that, when we look at this list and we'll be like picking out guys that are more cost efficient. But if you got that common spot, go ahead and just have some fun. Like, that's a great time to have Messi.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Not Messi, though, or at least not Messi for Champion Europe anymore.
Right. But like right now, if you're playing it, like, once he plays, if it's MLS is the only thing going, it's a great time. Like, the Messi's out of your price range, plop him in here. And the great part too is I see like people that you and I both know that are mega whales that still play this competition because you can. So, it's a good way to still get, some utility and, maybe compete a little bit with them with a card that you might not have actually thought was in your range.
Absolutely. Like I really love that. Germ said Royal Ivy started a series like this for pro leagues for next season with this exact strategy. So I don't believe he was the one who told me about it, but it's fully like, I think that's literally the most viable way to play.
That's my favorite way. That's my favorite way to do it. Like,
yes.
And I think like the strategy makes most sense, but like, there's not a wrong way to do it either. Like I did the 270 last weekend just because I was like going through the end of my lineups and I had some limiteds left over. I'm like, oh, I'm just missing a goalkeeper. I'm like, hey, let me just go swap out a goalkeeper, and I popped in a common just because I could, just to like play it. It was just like I had these leftover cards. I'm like, oh, that'd be fun to at least have something tossed in there, and I just had to make a swap and pick the wrong guy. But it's cool that flexibility exists.
Yeah, so Blue Tomatoes brings up the point that we shouldn't ignore, that you do get more points from your. Do you actually get more points? You definitely get.
No,
You have to
just the
captain your
captain.
limited. Yeah, you have to
You
captain
have to
your limited.
captain limited.
But
yeah, on 270 you don't. Blue Tomatoes might be referring to the semi-pro where you just have the one and you get the 50% boost. But if you just had commons, you're not competing as well.
Yeah, I mean,
if you don't captain your limited, like if you're limited,
well, you have to captain the limited. Like limited, you cannot you can't get your common gill. Or
right, but you're captaining a 35 guy versus captaining a gill. It's a big difference.
Right. But theoretically, if you can get an Mbappe for free, like a common Mbappe, basically, not being able to captain that is probably still better than whoever the terrible player, not terrible, but the cheaper player that you have that you can captain, and therefore you get at least two pretty good picks.
Yep, good.
Yeah. So Germ said he picked Vinicius as his common forward in a stack of some other team. Much more fun than playing the clean sheet matchups. That's fair. Well, that's fair.
Can I just throw something else out too before we move on from there? Like one strategy wasn't Hoop. I was talking to somebody else about that plays a lot of the competition is using that final one, and they're not concerned about the common competition, but they keep swapping guys out by a matchup. So that, it's Mbappe this week, but then they look and it's Kimmich next week that they really want. And they just keep targeting the different guys, based on those common drafts. So they have them available, which absolutely works. And I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, no, I think that makes total sense. And we'll get into prices of certain players and whatnot. But what it really comes down to is you will see that goalkeepers may be more expensive. Like ratio, that's not the word I was looking for. But basically, you don't feel like you're getting as much bang for your buck. But when you look at the prices of like the elite guys, the elite outfield players, at least using a common makes sense in a lot of situations. Now, the other thing we should point out is you can play your whatever it is, Premier League Pro lineup in Champion Europe if you do get 5 limiteds. But if you start mixing leagues, then you just have to play them in Champion Europe Limited. You can't, you're not going to be able to play Mbappe in a Premier League pro competition. So just things to consider, as you start moving up. So I'm going to try to pull up. So basically the stack that our friend Andy Black sent us was his West Ham stack. And this is for next season. Now, again, things can happen. We don't know exactly who's staying and who's going, but I just wanted to at least go through. And even the stacking thing is not necessarily something that has to be done. I think it's one of the, it's a worthwhile strategy. When we did our show, was last week the collection show? Maybe it was 2 weeks ago. I don't remember.
Yeah, I think 2 weeks ago.
But there are going to be people who buy stacks and then increase their bonuses by buying other cards from that team. That's basically the collection bonus. And if you're making stacks of the same players, they're going to beat you if you don't have this collection bonus. That doesn't mean you both can't win. There are a lot of prizes up for grabs. But if you have the absolute peak week and all of your players score really well and someone else has more of a collection bonus than you, then they'll finish ahead of you. But you both could get good prizes. It's not like they give out 3 prizes a week here.
And Neps, I don't know if he's doing the limited level versus rare, but he's doing that with Arsenal right now. With the theory of, when Arsenal plays Forest at home, or I gotta get back to the Prem, who's coming up? I all of a sudden struggled. Who knows if Burnley will be good, but that type of theory too. When in these lopsided leagues, when you get a 20th place team at home, those type of stacks can go off.
Yep.
So he's going double D. He wanted to go double defense in his hammer stack.
I think that's what he did. I don't know if it's necessarily
advisable.
Right. Well, some weeks it's
Benrahma. I thought he would go Benrahma, or unless he doesn't have Benrahma, was really good for them in the season.
I mean, we can throw Benrahma.
It doesn't. Yeah, he's definitely seems like he's finally figured it out. Doesn't really show in that last 5, but I just know he was pretty relevant.
Yeah, that's fair. Alex Wilson was also not a big Kurt Zuma fan. So we can we'll take him out. That's no problem. It does get a little more expensive that way. I would assume that the top actually, I guess, yeah, you would assume that the double defender combination is probably cheaper because attacking ones are not as much. So Joe Ducey said top forwards feel more expensive than non-U23 keepers, at least summer ones to me, which it does seem like there are the top players are like many of the top players in Champion Europe are forwards, and like those guys are very expensive, and we'll get into their prices in a little bit. But basically what we have here is an $80 West Ham stack of 5 players. And you don't have to play 5 West Ham guys, but like here it is. And if you wanted to reduce the price, like Bowen is the most expensive one here. So if you wanted to use a Bowen common, you could do that and you get your price down to basically $60, save $20. And so this is like the concept tool on Sorare data. You just go to builder here and then football concepts. It is in beta. So occasionally there's some wacky things in it, but I actually think for these purposes, it's less about like how they've done previously and just now being able to track their prices and see how much they're going for, so that you can see like how much is it going to cost for me to participate in one of these competitions. So Keith, is there any other, another team or stack that you wanted to look at?
Not really, because I don't necessarily think the way I would attack this is full out stacking, because like that show we talked about 2 weeks ago, I think we kind of joked that the most efficient stack on the platform was probably Twant, however you say it, like because they just happened to have somebody at each position, and then they were really good defensively and had 2 really good defending scorers so you could do double defense with Undersaw. But like, PSG is a great stack, but then it's missing a midfielder. So Kimmich is the best part of a PSG stack. And, you go Bayern, and they've at times rotated so much. Do you really want a Bayern stack where you don't know who's starting at the forward positions, right? Like I know Sané was in and out of the lineup a ton. Gnabry was in and out of the lineup a ton. I'm not like a Bayern fan. I just know from like playing DFS sites, they would come in and out a ton. So I think if you're going to just quote unquote stack, you do like mini stacks. So for PSG, maybe you do, Mbappe, Neymar, exactly what you just put up there, right? But we see that price is quite a bit different, mostly because of Mbappe. Take Mbappe out. What's the price if you use Mbappe common?
$675 floor price, $587 for the recent averages.
I wouldn't pay $675 for a limited, pro team or even 1,200. Like I think that me and you both want to attack this kind of be more efficient, but know that the top champ teams you can stack, you probably do well. You might sweat a few podiums, and you're probably going to need a podium a few times to really get good ROI if that's what you're looking for.
For certainly this level of outlay to get these cards. And it is worth mentioning that there will be these stacks in the competition that you're in. Like people will play Champion Europe limited with these cards. And so it's not like we're saying you can go buy that West Ham stack and you'll be able to compete with this PSG one every week, but it's more just being able to figure out which weeks your stack makes sense and just going with that. And Scosmo actually kind of brings this up a little bit.
Yep.
They said it was mentioned before about playing limited with a DFS approach. So what are your thoughts on picking the worst team in the league, which apparently everybody thinks is Luton Town, and week by week bringing in the stack versus that?
Ethan Horvath is going to have something different to say about that. But just on that, all right, I'm a home away truther, big time, as you guys are starting to learn. Like Luton's going to have games at home that they're going to surprise people. They could be an absolute disaster away, which a lot of these teams are, but they can grind results at home. I don't think I would ever want to just consistently pick 5 and stack against, but I think knowing when you have really, really favorable spots for like mashers versus them, is really important. Like, you know, he kind of rose to the occasion at the end of the season, so he wasn't like unknown. But you know, from a DFS perspective, like we were smashing Olise for most of the season at home, because Palace, that's where they actually can get possession. So like, you know, that would be like a great spot to be able to run a guy like that out there. But you know, Olise, you're not feeling so great, you know, away to United. So I think, and you know, in that same example, I don't necessarily know that I would want to pick 5 Palace guys just because it's Luton. Like, you know, if Zaha does leave, you know, do I feel great about Ayew, Edouard? You know, do I feel great about God, who's their goalkeeper? Johnstone and Mark, is it Guhai, the Chelsea kid? Like, right? Like it starts getting like, do I really feel that great about this? And then buying a whole new team, and then, you know, I have to wait the whole week. I don't know. I think that's a little bit much to me to go 5 in, 5 out every week, just targeting one team.
I think it's just, that's a losing proposition unless you just have a like a humongous gallery. And then if you're like, if I have a humongous gallery, why don't I just buy the PSG stack? And so
yeah, can I on Blue Tomatoes, does home away really matter beside MLS and Gladbach? I'll give an example. The first thing that popped up in my head though was, I want to say 2 seasons ago. I remember the first game of the season was a kickoff. Arsenal was like -300 away to Brentford. And Brentford was like I was betting a little bit more than the time, was like my lock bet, because that stadium was huge. All the talk had been, they were just, everything was leading up to that game. And I think they won 2-0, including like a goal off of a long throw in. Sorry, Laird, I'm bringing up bad memories, but I think it does matter a ton. Some of these environments, Forest was really good at home and was one of the all-time worst teams away in the Premier League, and they stayed up because of their home form.
Yeah.
So it does matter.
I think it's more circumstantial than you think. Like you are, like you said, you are a home truther. And
I see the away tag and I immediately don't even want to play a player in my lineups.
Guys, the number of times where Keith sends me a message and he's like, I think the pick score is broken because this guy's a AAA and he's away. And I'm just like, Keith,
a lot of times it's been right.
Yeah.
It's just you don't get as big of dominant game flows. It's really hard to have the same complete dominance on game flows that you can have when, you know, Luton goes to City, it's going to be really, really ugly. City goes to Luton, it's still going to be ugly, but just maybe not, you know, as bad.
So I'll say this, because a lot of people are bringing up like Jonas Hoffman, who has like absurd home away splits. So I think the big difference here is that I am closer to agreeing with you about home away splits for full stacks, that I would not play, or I would not feel comfortable playing a full stack if they're away. But like individual players, not that I don't think it matters, but I don't think it's as big of a negative. Let me pull up.
No, I think it's like, I'm definitely not somebody that's saying a guy can't score well away. I just think you're always going to see a big difference in odds home and away too.
Sure.
You know, that same matchup that Arsenal was -300 away, which was crazy. They would have been -600 or 700 at home, right? Given the same type of things. So, you know, the bookies are acknowledging it too. So I think, you know, again, not telling you that a guy's dead. It's just, it is part of the evaluation. Know the guys that do perform at home. You know, I know Net brought it up, but like Hector Herrera in the MLS, like Houston is this massive home away difference type of team. So if you know these things occur, you know, be on the lookout for them.
Sure. And that is one of the things about the kind of the complaint about Sorare, is like you have to know things like that. But you don't really need to know all of those things.
You don't
like if you know those things about a certain league or a certain team, that's already in your advantage, and that you know that already. So you're not doing any like extra work. Like if you know this Jonas Hoffman Gladbach thing, or Jonas Hoffman home away thing, then you're okay. The thing is, if you ignore Hoffman all the time when he's away. Like, you're obviously missing some good games. And so you just have to realize that while he is better at home, that doesn't mean he's always bad away.
Yeah.
And
away to Schalke, we'll still like him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like he
was fine
despite whatever the
Leverkusen.
Performance was. You know,
Frankfurt?
I mean,
okay.
But away to Dortmund, going to downgrade him.
Right. Which I think is sort of leads to the importance of, if you are going to stack, it's probably good to have more cards than just the 5. Obviously, that gets to be a little more expensive and all that, but it at least allows you to be competitive more often. And like, I think that's ultimately what it comes down to, is the negative feeling about having to like pay more to play on Sorare. It's not that it's expensive to play. It's expensive to be competitive all the time. And as long as you're comfortable knowing that some weeks you're just not going to be competitive because you have your West Ham stack and they're away to Man City, then it is what it is. You go again. Yep. You don't have to pay another entry fee next week to do it. You can just play those cards again the following week.
Yep.
Joe Ducey, everybody keeps bringing up thinking that these hundreds were against Bayern. He had 100 against Bayern at home. I know, because I talked about this literally yesterday. Jonas Hoffman's home away splits, like home form is so good that you can play him at home against anyone, like literally anyone. And this 100 against Bayern is what makes everybody think that. Anyway, I love Jonas Hoffman. I have his jersey mint limited, so like obviously I'm gonna love this guy. Look at that, what a card. Anyway, let's go through the rankings, because I think this is kind of there's 2 things that I wanted to point out from this page, and the first is obviously it's still counting players who on where their cards are minted, which is why Lionel Messi is still on this list despite being on his way to Inter Miami. And what was the other one? Koulibaly, presumably on his way to Saudi Arabia. So take that with a grain of salt. And we have sort of weird ones like Danilo isn't getting new minted cards because they don't have Juventus anymore, but like there are Danilo cards available. It's just random stuff like that. But the thing that I basically wanted to point out, other than the fact that Bruno Fernandes is first, that's just something
the newest GOAT in your gallery. Congrats,
contractually obligated to bring that up. But this page will at least allow you to see. This is just sorted by how fantasy points that each player averaged over their last 15 games, and you can sort it to their last 40. 40 essentially takes in all of last season, or most of last season's domestic games, and if they played any European competitions, and actually includes any international stuff. But 40, I think, gives a better idea of like longevity of how good these players are. Now, obviously, the guys at the top of this list are going to be the more expensive ones. Like, they're the better players in the game, and the prices on this game are heavily based on how good they are in the game. And so that's why you see guys like that. But it also allows you to see guys like Remy Cabella, who had an incredible season and costs like a tenth of Joshua Kimmich. And
that's the type I really want to focus on. That's the type I really want to focus on, to kind of show, especially if you can get a stable of those guys and get a little bit of a reward snowball, that you can play this game even at the champ level for a reasonable budget. Be competitive, compete. But again, I think one of the easiest things too at the beginning, I remember Andy Black saying it so long ago, and I never like fully understood it, but the effect of the snowball, the effect of the rewards on top of the rewards, especially if you're focusing just on Champ Euro, you're only going to win Champ Euro rewards. So if you just keep accumulating those, then you can start playing the matchups. You can play the pro competitions to start, diversifying and getting yourself a little bit more action as well. I think it's all kind of gravy from there.
Yeah, for sure. And it's worth noting that, and to kind of piggyback on what you said, that if you enter Champion Europe competitions, like you're going to win Champion Europe cards. And even if they're like you get a tier 5 or a tier 4 and you're like, I've never heard of this guy, but like they happen to play in one of these Champion Europe competitions, like you're still at least adding to the depth of your gallery, that if that player does start to play or they just have that perfect matchup one weekend, you'll be able to play them. And so I think a lot of the conversations about Champion Europe being so hard to win is a big focus on first place. And while everybody wants to win first place and first place is fun, they give out a lot of rewards here. So I'm not saying it's easy to win, but I think if you're starting out and you are trying to say like, I don't want to spend that much money, but I want to win first place, I think you need to at least get a better understanding.
You got to manage your expectations.
Right.
Manage your expectations. So here's a good example too, Champ Europe, and you didn't win it in Champ, but Laird, do you know that you have the 7th ranked? I did by L15, so sorry, but 7th ranked forward, and I believe you won him. He's either a tier 3 or a tier 4. Rare. Do you know who that is?
No.
Don't look.
I looked. You're right. I didn't. I did not know this. Like I didn't know he was that high.
7th.
I know he's great.
So awesome. I mean, what was he? A tier 3 or tier 4 for you?
No, I think he was higher than that. I think he was probably a tier.
You think so?
2. Yeah, I do. But it's Dwight McNeil for anybody who's not watching. Dwight McNeil.
Yeah, you got him before. Well, the reason I was going to use this example,
I lost Keith. There he goes. Hold on. There you go. Sorry. I don't know why you got.
Oh, no. So he was barely getting playing time. And then all of a sudden, Sean Deitch, who, made him great in a lot of ways at Burnley, or made his performances stick out at Burnley, comes back, and all of a sudden his role changes. And now he's 7th. So sometimes, too, you can get a guy on a downswing. I just saw something posted in chat. Bullstar posted about a few guys that aren't going to be on this list. But Jerry D, who, if they can ever not be hurt, crushes. Gerard Moreno, a little goal dependent, but a really good player. Mark Guth, who, we haven't seen him on for a while, but he was really good 2 years ago for Cone. So,
he was
if you do
really, really good.
Yeah, so who knows, sometimes for him, he was on a lot of set pieces, could Kynes take over a lot goes on there, but there's some really good values. And again, we're going to be skipping over the Messis, Griezmanns, and Mbappes of the world and kind of talking about maybe who's a little more underpriced.
Yeah. So Blue Tomato says, how many stars do you need to compete every week? 4+. So I think that it's not 5 because I don't consider any goalie a star. Like, sure. I realized Thibaut Courtois is probably like far and away the best Champion Europe goalkeeper. Although I'm going to go to the rankings and it's going to be somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah. He's way down there,
but basically if you notice that the top goalkeeper by average over L15 is Emiliano Martinez, and he's below like 62 points. And L40, it's Mike Mignon, who's basically there too. There's Courtois. So like the difference between these guys is not that great. And like goalkeeper is just such a, I don't want to say it's like all so random, but like the upside of a goalie is lower than outfield players. And so like spending so much on a goalkeeper just to like be like, I have 5 stars. I think it's actually better to like get 3 or 4 lower level ones and just play matchups each week.
And here's another, I think a bigger question is, what do you consider a star? Because do you consider Jonas Hoffman a star? Do you consider Benjamin Borgard a star? Or a star are the guys that are on FIFA? Like the cover of FIFA, right? Like that's my opinion, because they're so rare stars. And then, Antoine Griezmann at the start of the season probably was not considered a star while he was at Barcelona rotting on the bench. Even when he made the move, I don't think a lot of people were like super thrilled.
Well, he had a weird like.
I know. I bought 3. If you remember, I bought like 2 of them. So I was very big on like as soon as that transfer went. But is that the line? Like, I think it's a big time like a line of demarcation of what you consider a star, too. Because
Sure.
is Remy Cabello a star?
I think that there is a reasonable. It's one of those things that this doesn't like sell the game that much, but I think there are ways that you can play without stars at all. It obviously
100%.
requires you to have a bigger gallery in terms of number of cards, but like playing matchups each week, what that requires is more time though, like more time to study and figure out who you want to play. But there are a few people in chat, and KB97 brings this up, like Berardi is just
Exactly.
like,
He's insane.
so he's been like, he was at Sassuolo this past season, and finished it really, really well. And so he, L15 wise, is ranked ahead of guys like Griezmann and Mbappe, and frankly, L40 he probably is like too. L40 he's ahead of Salah, Vinicius Jr., Erling Haaland. Like it, yeah. Daniel brings it up that he might go to Lazio, which, as we were talking to each other before this, that's a fine move for him. Like there shouldn't be like this tremendous drop off just because he goes there. And so someone also brought it up about Griezmann, and we're talking about Griezmann being like this huge star, but looking at his price, like from an L40 perspective. So do I have this sorted by L40? There we go. Yeah. So L40 is just like his average fantasy points in his last 40 games. He's ranked second behind Messi. So theoretically, he is first among those who are still eligible for Champion Europe. And the floor price on a Griezmann limited card right now is $113. Mbappe, 522. Harry Kane, 207. Vinicius, 247. And so there are opportunities to get guys that are a little cheaper. And then Berardi, 73. And so I think if you are willing to do like a little bit of that work, then you can find guys who are much, much cheaper. It just, like I said, requires more work.
And so that's, to me, like where all this comes in. And, these are guys, if we take like the NEP Football Ultimate Team, these are still names that are not like off the board. If you're a football fan, you know who Dominic Berardi is. Like he started for Italy in the World Cup. Like it's not, I'm not telling you to go pick some dude at Schalke that you've never heard of. I don't know why I have all the Schalke shame on here. Sorry for any fans. As a newly crowned hamburger fan, I need to not talk bad about lower level Germany type of thing. Yeah. But I think it's just, getting some names in here that, but don't realize they crush as much as they do.
Yeah, so and it is kind of funny.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I realized that we started this with it's too much work. And now we're like, hey, if you don't want to spend up, you got to do the work. But it is true. Like if you don't want to spend the money, then you have to do the work.
Yeah. So, I mean, guess what? You want to go do Courtois, going to blank on defender, just not going to put it. Kimmich, Haaland, Mbappe, and go, I just want the most nice. Got to pay the price. Right. Or you can do just a little bit of work, at the beginning, see some guys over a long haul that have done really well, and then watch them go and let it snowball. I think that's the approach we kind of wanted to think about it.
Yep, absolutely. And actually, just basically while we're here, one of my favorite tools on Sorare Data is the similar players feature. So yes. Like if you're a Liverpool fan, but don't necessarily want to spend money on all of these, like Salah, what did the Salah limited just go for? $114. If you go to his player page, we have this similar players option, and you can just sort it by Champion Europe, and it just gives you like all of the players, which unfortunately gives you.
Take off the age range. Take out the age range, and you get a lot better.
There we go. Oh, what do you know?
Look at that guy.
McNeil. Good to see you. But
or Daniel Malin's a great shot too. Like I was actually shocked how good he ended the season at Dortmund. I had kind of written him off. He was fantastic to end the season. Take away the Dutch games, but he was really good.
It is a lot better than I thought he was.
Exactly. I had no idea. Like he was very, very, very good, except for in the game that mattered a lot.
Oh, womp womp. But yeah, I'd say so. Basically, I'm not here to like pump Dwight McNeil, but it's players like this. João Pedro, he's going. Oh, he went to Brighton already. I mean, so Brighton is actually a really good example because they had a number of players who were like really good.
Solly March was crazy
cheap this year. Solly March was one. Pascal Gross was another who was pretty good. Like Solly March, you can get for just under $22 right now. Gross is 18. I thought Matoma had
I think
40.
Lewis Dunk as the defender was crazy, was really good and consistent.
Yep. Yeah. $12 for Dunk. And then I guess the goalie, didn't they get a new goalie?
You just have to spend a nice expensive on Van Perugian now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be a little expensive there, but
maybe use the common verb. I'm just kidding. I mean, you could, I guess. So there are places you can go that will allow you to get similar players, meaning score-wise, than what we have here. And so you can also just change this based on, so it defaults to the last 15, but you can go to last 40, and then players.
There you go.
Like this is what's wild is like you're looking at Mohamed Salah. You're like, I don't want to spend $120 for a Mohamed Salah, and I don't want to spend $207 for Harry Kane, who could be going to Bayern. I don't want to spend 178 on Musiala. Even 63 for Lacazette seems like a lot. Hey, we've got. Did they go down? Now that I'm like using this as a.
I don't think so, but he took all their sets too as forward eligible as well. I saw somebody making a comment about strikers. So you could find somebody like him that takes all the sets for a team, and there's your high floor. And when he gets to decisive, you get good old dark green scores.
Yeah, Marvin Duksh. Is that how you would say that? Duksh.
I don't know. We played him a lot in DFS, and I was just in the duck emoji when he did well. Just so I had to spell his name.
All right, that's fair. So like those are basically like I think the player rankings and then the similar players feature is like one of my favorites in order to find guys who are just like that. Just as it explains it, they are similar in terms of their scoring. It kind of takes out, if you're not playing U23, you don't necessarily need somebody who is under 23 scoring the same as Vinicius Jr. Change that too. But, you have guys like Oshiman, Jeremy Doku. Oh boy. He's pretty expensive. And Nicolas Gonzalez from Fiorentina. Obviously.
He was way up there. There was another guy that I had kind of written down when we did this exercise. He's a lot better than I thought in terms of a scorer.
Mm-hmm. And $30. Let's see. Thorpe Steinson.
Yeah, that's the Isom guy. Yeah. We're back to that's Challenger.
Where's he? I was going to say, is he going to Champ Europe or I don't know.
I don't know.
But do you think that forward is the hardest one to fill?
Not really. I was surprised. So I'm just call it Duksh and know that that's wrong. But I think he was 12 on the list or somewhere around there. It was only like $20. Let me see how I'm sorted here. Berardi obviously is not cheap, but $76 wasn't bad. Lacazette, L15 is 62, L40 is 60 for $50. McNeil was my budget pick, but you could get Dutch's teammate Fulkrag, who I think might be becoming one of the starters in Germany too, for the German national team as striker. He's at least up there, $27. There's plenty of options if you go deep enough.
Who was the last name?
Lorente. It's his teammate. I don't like strikers that much, but Fulkrag, Fullkrug. But here's one that I was just like going through the list. Armand Lorente, who's also at Sassuolo. If Berardi leaves, he would probably end up getting all of their set pieces, depending on who comes in. A young kid. He was really, really good in Ligue 1. He had like a goal this season. I think it was like a free kick from 60 yards type of thing in the top corner. Hey, Scosmo likes him too. So that's a really good look. How do you have it sorted? And I'll just give you, are you sorting L15? I'll make it easier.
Yeah, hold on.
All right, Lorente.
I know that Scosmo's a huge fan. He thinks Plie will be good.
Scosmo has good taste. Scosmo has good taste. What can we say?
Hold on. This is by L15. That's how you had it?
Yeah, well, I had it. Oh, there we go. He's 81st by L15. $27.
Oh, wait. Nicholas Gonzalez, I wanted to add too.
Yes, for sure.
So I'm making, for those watching, a watch list here. It's called Limited Time Only. How much does it cost to play Champion Europe? Name of the video here. So I'll add this in the description. I guess it's.
Do we know anything about this Arna Norden? I feel like I've heard the name. Montpellier.
No, but that doesn't mean anything.
He plays wide. I kind of like that. I don't know if he's rumored, but $17. He is.
It's a nice AA score.
19th, L15. And then I like Kramaric a lot from DFS Stacks. He's right below him, under $10.
Is he really? That's it?
He's $9.30.
Yeah.
It's his 3-day average. So I like that a lot too.
I feel like he always comes through with some international goal at some point.
I mean, he's just always there. He's just like literally always shows up. And he plays like this hybrid, like 8-10 role at his club.
Yeah. Man.
I don't know. He's a good player. I mean, I think that, not some crazy names, but not names that nobody's ever heard of. And you can do well there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think really, I feel like you and I are tending not to this is obviously more if you don't want to stack a full team.
Yep.
And obviously this is also very different than what you can do with the Pro 270 competitions, because those are single domestic leagues. And obviously you're hindered by the 270 cap. But it's really, once you start playing Champion Europe, you can take guys from anywhere. And so that's what it is.
Yep.
Scosmo said the treatment room boys of Fekir, De La Feu, and Dembele. Was De La Feu a torn ACL? He was, right?
I don't know.
He's always hurt.
That's the problem.
Yeah. All three of them are really good when they're fit, and it just feels like this is going to be a problem.
See, to me, Fekir there too for $18, and we had a few guys even a McNeil that is just always playing. Yeah. I would just rather spend a couple bucks just to have McNeil. I know it's maybe a worse true upside, but I get to play him over and over again.
Yeah, De La Feu.
Here goes Jerry D. Jerry D's fantastic when he's healthy.
Yeah, he was really good at it.
Yeah, and for Daniel, for Munayin, I thought about him too. It was just weird. A lot will end up being Nico Williams took a lot of his set pieces, and then he was in and out of the lineup too for a bit. So that was my only concern on him. But that is a good shout.
He's great.
He used to be really good
set pieces, but these scores are nuts. But it's also
but Nico Williams might move, so that would be a good thing too for somebody like that if he's gonna come back. Then they had some other guy I've never rated, but I think it's Alex Behringer. They like a lot. Then he took some set pieces too. So
yeah, Hugo. I'm guessing that's Ochoa. Is there any Prem fours that you guys like?
Dwight McNeil?
Yeah, I think McNeil.
That would be my pick, just because who he just put. I'm not going to try to say the name. Goal dependent guy for Forest. So I mean, it's great when he shows up. I think me and you both side to guys, and that list shows a lot more on the AA side. That when they blow up, they're not going to cap us out at 65, because in limited, just doing this and then relying on a decisive just to get you barely over the decisive minimum, that's just not going to get you as far as a McNeil gets you 15 AA, and then all of a sudden he gets an assist on a corner. Now we're at 75, and now we're cooking.
Yeah. So yeah, no, you don't have to. You have to sell Dwight McNeil on me. I will say that just to be careful with the João Pedro stats, because those were all with Watford, where he took a bunch of set pieces.
And he played he played all over the place too. He was playing as a 10. And I think he's probably going to be more of an out and out striker for Brighton. I don't know. There's some nerves, but I would also just like to see how somebody performs at the next level before jumping on him. So
yeah, no, I think that's fair. Daniel Cooper saying 65 isn't good enough for limited, which I think is wrong. It's certainly not good enough if you're only If you're trying to
first
win
or nothing. Yeah, first or nothing. But, if we're trying to start snowballing limits, it's good. But again, to me, it's why I was making that comment is more off of just like a goal-dependent striker. Because like I'll take my 50s. I'll take McNeil had a bad game and got me 48. Whereas, a striker could get me 32.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's just not that many, like, there's only one Erling Haaland who you're like, this guy's going to score every single week. There's like Haaland, Kane, Salah. And then after that, it just kind of gets ugly, to be honest. Like, it's guys who are like, yeah, they could score, but like a lot of them probably don't. And so that's why we tend to focus on all around scores.
I will say one more on that forward, just based on the price. It's a little bit more than we were spending, but might be worth it if you want to take a shot, is Heung-min Son, because we're like a year removed from him probably should have been the player of the year. And then it's come out, I would expected it to come out that he was playing with an injury all season. So I hope that's the case because I love Heung-min Son. But, for $40, depending on your budget, that could definitely be worth a shake because he's a big enough name too that if he starts out really good, he's going to be in demand.
Yep, so absolutely. KB97 said my guy Cody Hackbo next season is.
He just won't have the problem with Gakpo is he's never going to be the same that he was before because he's not going to take set pieces at Liverpool, and he's playing through the middle, so he's just a striker.
Yeah, he's getting pushed even further down.
I love him
list too. If they,
it's just
getting the Shozbalai.
Yeah.
Yeah. Luke may have said 48 will likely ruin you in limited. So like he said, at least the reward will probably not be better than T3, T4. We're not disputing that at all. Like, yes, you need good scores to win good prizes, but these guys, it's not like you're going to score 48 like every game. Like you just need one game where everyone does well.
Yep.
Like
the more good players you add, the more good players that you add, the more that you can match up pick, and the more. Oh, Laird, I think just getting off topic a little bit, but your 240 team that just won you a Bruno and Rare is like a great example of just having really good players that you didn't. I don't know if you said this on your stream. I couldn't remember, but they were in your 240 because they all the guys other than Reynoso all had bad matchups. Like Cecino was in a matchup that you didn't want to target him in.
Cecino's matchup was fine. He was just away.
I don't know of a way to the top team in Korea is exactly a great matchup.
Give me a hard time.
I know, but there was one other matcher in there. I can't remember. But again, my point is like if you have good players. Ryan Gauld, away to LAFC wasn't exactly a great matchup. That's why he ended up there. But really good players can show up in good matchups.
Yeah, Jonas Hopkins has scored on playing away once.
Right. It's not like he's never broken 50 away from home.
Right.
All right, mids.
Yeah, so I think we can see the score drop off is significant. Like Bruno and Rodrigo were the clear top guys. I guess you could throw in Kevin De Bruyne, but I feel like this is where it's very easy to overspend on name than production. And the biggest example is the fact that you have Bukayo Saka is 8 times more expensive than Pierre-Emile Højbjerg from Spurs, who is one of the most underpriced players on the entire platform. His scores are crazy for $20. And I don't usually like to say nice things about Tottenham players.
No, I don't disagree. I mean, if you go up above him too, there's a lot within there. Do you want to start doing names?
Yeah, I'll just add whoever.
All right. I mean, I think you have to, even though he's a little bit on the pricey side, we're going to add Borregoat for $42.
Oh wait, I'm just in the Premier League now. Hold on.
Oh, okay.
Here we go.
I was wondering why you had Rodrigo a second. I'm like,
sorry about that. Yeah, Borregoat for $40, while De Bruyne is literally $100 more. Isn't it?
And I'm not going to add that Omar guy. I did a quick Mascarelli. I did a quick search on him. I don't know enough, so I'm going to avoid that. 4th place for $5, but go for it if you know info. The Pierre-Louis Malou is just crazy how long he's been good for Brest, but he just crushes.
That's wild.
And then look at that last game was a negative decisive was the only reason.
Right.
I don't know. He just crushes, right?
Wow, he had 89 points playing away to Marseille. That's so strange,
dude. I mean, so I think Sully March is 8th on the list. We can put him. Remy Cabello, we have to because he's like literally the 3rd from L40. I don't know the news on him, but Favre, I actually own him, and he got a loan to Lorient and was great with Lafille, and he was splitting sets. And if he stays on that and now Lafille goes and he has all the sets, I mean, he could be like, if you look before the Lyon days, too, if you go back, he was just an absolute smasher.
Yeah.
Like before he went to Lyon, and that move just didn't work. So I think he's a good upside, and he's young.
Yep. Yeah, I like that call. Scosmo was talking about Alex Garcia, who
he got hurt. He was great, though.
But he was really good. He was a classic player that you're just like, who is this guy? And you look at the scores and you're like, oh, he's really
good. He was a City product, too. I remember way back when. So, I mean, I'm fine putting him on the list, assuming that he's healthy.
Yes.
I don't know, man. There's like so many. I almost feel like the list gets too big. There's so many. If you search between L15, like in between that 10 to 20 range of just guys that don't have huge name recognition that and just score really well for like $20 or under.
Yeah, I think just the most important thing is to remember that the game is all about scoring points. And so you don't get any more points from Declan Rice for $70 as you do from Emery Chan at 13. I'm not saying they're the same type of player, but
Jude for $162 and 32nd place. Martin Odegaard, who I think we all love and is great, but if you sort by L15, he's 39th for $92. And I know the guy right above him, Goombao, takes all the sets for I think it's like Elche. Ooh, I got it right. That's amazing. But he's a defensive mid, like kind of like the type that we like, defensive mid that takes sets. Does really well on this type of platform.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly what Scosmo said. Like, there's so many. He said Canales, Luis Alberto, Vincenzo Grifo.
So let's put Parejo on the list because we are John Nellis supporters, and Danny Parejo is $14.84. So we can put
that is nuts. Yeah, they're just too many.
So we'll put him on the list. But yeah, it's not a full list, but just the point being, you really don't need. I mean, look, I love the guy, but Kamavinga is 47th, $109.
Yeah, you can easily play you can easily play the matchup game. The set piece matchup game. Like, when Elche have a good matchup, you play Gumbau and whatever the heck his name is.
I don't know if they ever have a good matchup.
Scoring out all the gold today.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and stop here. But yeah, Max Arnold, another good one. My boy Cherney is now going to hope that Max Arnold lets him take some set pieces so he can still have SO5 relevance. We'll see.
Do you think I don't want to go defender by defender because I think the more important conversation is how necessary do you think pairing your goalkeeper and defender is?
I think it's the way to smooth variance the best. Like, you just go ahead. The best example ever, you take a 5-leg parlay and you make it 4.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, if Goombao stays with Elche, he'll mash in.
Yeah. If you liked him in Champion Europe, you'll love him in second.
You'll love him there. But yeah, so we'll just go ahead and we'll remove him later. But I mean, he might do very well there. It still is the prototype. But yeah, I would like to do it just because it's one less decision point gone.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I still just think it's.
So you want to do goalies first, maybe, and then we can just match our defenders.
Yeah, I'm not even sure. like there's only so much I feel like you can reasonably talk about with goalies. It's like
isn't Big Steve supposed to get another year?
yeah, Mandanda is super cheap.
He's third for L15, $22.
Yeah, I think everyone is just worried he's too old. But
Might
I mean,
just
it is what it is.
yeah. Isn't like his son behind there at some point or something like that? I might be wrong.
But yeah, like I'm just fully in the camp that if you're going to spend $150 on Courtois or Allison, then you should buy 5 or 6 other guys who are cheaper and just play the matchup each week.
Yeah, like I know I don't know if Quinny's still in here, but just on the list, I think 13th is David Soria for Getafe, who's a very defensive team when they're right. Like that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
having a guy like that.
Yeah, his price tanked too
13.
when because it sounded like he was going to go to Real Madrid to be a backup. But
that's right.
I mean, like David De Gea is 33, and while you could say like Man United seem to be replacing him, he probably goes and starts at another champion Europe team. Like
very likely possibility.
Yeah. And there's just like tons of like I said, I think they're just if you're going to pay
there's
up,
like Mark Flecken. Yeah, Mark Flecken, $28. He's going to be at Brentford, who are a big time splits team. They were very good last year. I mean, for a mid-table team, but like you could probably feel pretty good. Sorry about the home away thing, but putting him at home for some mid-table or lower table side, there's a really decent shot at a sheet there.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we got Frederick Rano from Union Berlin, who have midweeks, like $40. I wouldn't ever touch Lucas Herdecki. It seems like he hasn't held a clean sheet in his entire career, but just the further you go down the list, like not that they don't matter, but like Oblak, I like was scrolling and got too far, but like Oblak might be the most overpriced player.
Yep.
Based on his scores.
Yep.
Ignoring the zeros that he's not getting, but like, I don't know.
The Spurs guy they just signed, I don't know if he's U23 or not, but $73 versus Bernlindo, $27.
Right. Yeah, I think. Yeah, everyone keeps saying like, or somebody said, yeah, KB97 said, pick the defender and then choose the goalkeeper. Like, I think that's fine, but ultimately, I think they need to. It's better if they match.
I think it's better for you to do the opposite, personally. Either like you get your goalkeeper, see if there's a good defender that pairs with him, and then if there's not, then just pick a defender. But like it's, my favorite combo ever is Understall and Proper. It's just like just from like my own gallery, it's just like the easiest thing. Anytime that they're in a good matchup, I just plug them in and 2 decisions are done. And I'm just looking at mid, forward, and extra. And that's like sometimes when you're making a lot of lineups too, it's hard to fully describe the relief of just not having to make those extra decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So I think sometimes that's it too. Gaia, I love. I just saw you pulling him up.
Yeah.
He was even losing sets and he still was doing well.
Mm-hmm. But like that's one that he's $10 basically. And, I guess Delict has some U23, but like over the last 40 games, Gaia has averaged more fantasy points than Virgil van Dijk, and he costs a third of the price.
So here's actually what here's a stack I want to bring up. If we're talking about stack, here's one good one. So you could do Mark Flecken. So Brentford was like $27. Mm-hmm. And then this is shocking to me, from L15, 7th in Champion Europe. You don't have him on there. Do you want to guess? I don't even know if you could get the name. I'm giving you the team. Brentford.
No, I couldn't.
Ethan Pinnock. L15 of 62, L40 of 56, $12.81.
Sure.
I mean, I would have never guessed. Not bad. Maybe he should have played for Jamaica. Maybe they would. Maybe they wouldn't have conceded a last goal if they would have started the guy.
Alex Wilson does point out that you don't get the collection bonus with Brentford if you get Flecken, but you could also just wait for next season's card.
You could wait, but I'm throwing them out as just I just saw, and he was the first cheap defender that stuck out. He's only $110 cheaper than the 8th person, Nico Schlotterbach. But
Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Sopsy pointed out Ben Mee, who I was actually looking at myself the other day. He scored really well too, for the most
Yep,
part.
and he's
Well,
always live for a decisive too off of corners.
Yep.
Let
Yeah.
me
What
see
does he
if there's
cost?
another-
$4. I mean, that's like exactly what, like Fleck and Me. What did we say Flecken cost?
It was like $28. So yeah, that's perfect.
So like you can get both of those guys. Oh, I didn't actually put Flecken in. So you get both of those guys still for like a third of the price of Courtois. Like that's
Yep.
why I think it's better to do that. And again, just takes a
I
little
mean,
more time.
here's another one too. If you just wanted to go Prem, it's a little more expensive, but Sam Johnstone, I think, is the new goalkeeper at Palace. I would wait before buying, but he did get called up for England and started like the end of the season, so that seems likely that he got an England national team call. He's probably not going to be a backup again. But then Mark, I'm going to butcher his name, but it's Guhai. I know he was a Chelsea kid. He's 38th. He's younger, 22, so you get some premium there. But L15 of 58, he's only going to cost you $17.
Yeah, I think that it's exactly those types of guys that you're better off playing those matchups week to week than just buying Courtois once, particularly because if like something happens to Courtois or Ter Stegen or whoever, then you're out all of that. Like I feel like it's better to spread the risk around, at least for a goalkeeper, than it is outfield players.
Well, yeah, too, because like you just said, if Courtois gets hurt, but as well, let's say that I hate to just be Prem centric, but if I have the Flecken Me or the Flecken Pinnock, or I have,
all three.
Right, or do the triple stack with them. That would be a real cost saver. And the reason, too, I'm going to go off subject again, so sorry, but the reason you do that is typically when we've seen it over and over again, when you have defender or a goalkeeper that keeps a sheet, you get the 10 extra points for your defender, which is, in actuality, to me, it's 14 because I didn't lose to 4. Because as soon as the goal goes in, I lost 4 too.
Sure.
It counts. It's fine. Whatever. But you all of a sudden you add 10 to a guy, and let's just say he does like a average of 50. We're at 60 before doing anything else. We've got 60 from our goalkeeper. If we have another defender, we have another 60, and then we're rolling on from there. So that's why that correlation does work, especially if you can get two midfielders that do pretty well.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I'm trying to see who. I don't know why we got thrown off there. And then
we're back.
Sorry, I was trying to put a team into the who's our top
concepts.
Let's see what this team costs.
Had to be Parejo. Love it.
$100 basically.
Even.
Hold on, we can go much cheaper.
Yeah.
Now I'm not saying that this is like a lineup that's going to win every week. Oops.
But it's a good start, and you're competing at least.
Lowercase compete.
Lowercase compete, yes.
And then this was $5 Ben Mee. So again, we're not here saying this lineup, Flecken, Pinnock, Parejo, Kramaric, Me is going to win Champion Europe. Like, it's not likely to do that. But for $70, you have your Champion Europe team. You could certainly go cheaper. Like, there are definitely cheaper players to go. But the whole watch list, I think, what did I say, $400? $444. And that's like 20, that's 19 players. You don't need to get all 19, excuse me. Like, there's different ways to do it. But these are sort of just the things that you need to think about if you want to play just Champion Europe, because these are the teams or the leagues and KB97, more like competing.
I like that. Also, too, it's just worth noting as well. Even if you let's say that you have the week that lineup goes off and it maxes out at 15th, and you get a T1 worth $40-$45. I mean, you just have half that lineup. If you just want pure valuation, you have half that lineup paid for, and you still have 30 game weeks to go.
Right.
It's not bad.
Sure. Let me see. I'm going to try to pull up.
And you got the fun of sweating.
355. Let's just see what, for our last bit here, what the rewards are for like a random
Champ Euro.
Yeah. Let's see. February.
You got to remember the even odds thing.
I think it swithed after the Global Cup, right?
Yeah.
So February should be, I'd probably pick like an international week.
That looks like you're fine. Looks like
all right. Fine. So this was, the game week that ended the 21st of February. Let's see what kind of, just looking at the top, not even, well, obviously first place is.
Yeah, just look at like 25th. Let's just look at 25th.
Yeah. See, 25th is Newble. But I'm not even thinking that. Like, I think realistically with the lineup that we had, if it works out, you're probably in tier 3, tier 4. But just look at these guys, like you could probably sell Dominic Calvert-Lewin pretty easily. There's Emery Chan again that we saw before.
Yeah, he was way up there.
There's Ben Rama for your West Ham stack. Like, I think that there are enough guys that will. Like, I think the concern is like I'm going to win somebody I've never heard of, but like there are enough guys here. There's Kang In Lee going to
Kang In Lee, that's a great one.
So
Marcos Acuna could spike. I'm just saying, like to your point, we're seeing names that do matter, and that you could add your gallery and wait for a good matchup and be able to plug them in.
There's Will Hughes. Shout out to Blenderhead. But yeah, it's just like, and frankly, the other thing that I'm like considering here is that like 700 cards paid out down to tier 3. And so actually, I wonder if this was before the new tiers. It must be, which is why it's only tier 3. But I mean, it is
Messi for 3rd. That's fun. KDB for 5th. That was a fun.
I was going to say, I would be furious if I won Rashford over KDB. I don't know, just the way I would look at it. But anyway, KB97 says your disappointing champ Europe from today will be your summer goat in the future.
I mean, it's
Ricky Puig.
I mean, I saw like Angelino. I saw like as you were going through like Angelino, and he just got to move to Turkey where he probably smashes. So all of a sudden, like he said, you could all of a sudden get a challenger Europe team from your champ transfers.
Shout out to New York City FC on the Angelino chat throw out there. That's right. We've gone pretty long, but hopefully you guys at least got an understanding of where we were looking at in terms of competing in Champion Europe and the teams that you could put together, or players you could put together, and what kind of the budget is. As always, if you guys have any follow-up questions or want us to touch on a topic, even specifically about Champion Europe or something else, feel free to hit us up. I'm at Andrew M. Laird on Twitter. Keith's at GatorGuy231. I don't even have it on the screen there for myself, so I should. But or just leave a comment on the video because we see those as well. So thank you everyone for joining. If you could please like the video, that's always appreciated. And we'll be back next week, probably with a new division. Although, man, this is a terrible time of year to try to do Challenger Europe. Just saying. But we'll cross that bridge next week. Thank you, everyone.